From Ashley St. Clair, while slavery was common to all civilizations, only one civilization developed a moral revulsion against it: Western civilization.
The first point is that everyone had slaves, okay? People of all colors became slaves for economic reasons, because of war, because slavery, as odious as it was simply a normal way of life. Arabs were extracting millions of black African slaves centuries before Christian nations did, for about 13 centuries, compared to the 3 centuries European nations ran the Atlantic slave trade.
Well, this doesn't go along with the left's narrative that all the bad things that have ever happened in history are white people's fault.
Arabs marched African slaves across the Sahara Desert, and as such, they died more often. It was customary to castrate them, and many died from this practice. The Arabs also enslaved over 1 million white European Christians. The term slavery, in fact, comes from the word Slav. The Slavs inhabited Eastern Europe and were taken by the Muslims of Spain in the 9th century.
Wow, it sounds like history is actually kind of complicated, and maybe it even existed before TikTok.
Not to mention that Africans had been enslaving each other for thousands of years. The point is that slavery, the second point is that slavery was not about race, and that's important. It was not about race. The only reason we think it's about race is because philosophers like David Hume in the 18th century ranked human beings and put Africans at the bottom, saying that they had no souls. The Enlightenment imposed the concept of race on a practice that had been going on for centuries in order to justify that practice. And why did they have to justify it? And this is the point. Because people in the West began to question slavery's moral validity. The fact is that people of all colors owned slaves, both as part of the Atlantic slave trade and outside of it. In the United States and Caribbean, black people owned thousands of black slaves, and so did the Native Americans.
I wonder what portion of the Western population actually knows this stuff. Because this is all basic history stuff. This isn't, you don't need to be a history major. You don't need to have a degree in history to know this stuff. This is all basic stuff. You can find it out pretty easily. This should be taught in schools. Even if you're not taught in school, it's not hard to find it out, especially not with the internet now, right? But what percentage of the population actually knows? Is it 5%? Is it 2%? Is it 15%? Is it 20%? I think the percent is going up because of social media. But this should just be basic history that everybody is taught in school. It's not, obviously, because far left extremists that run all of the institutions now don't like it. It's not convenient for them. It's not convenient for their oppressor narrative, where it's only white people, it's only Europeans that were ever oppressors. Well, Xerxes says, Marxist revisional history. I think he nailed it on the head right there. But that should just be common knowledge. What percentage knows? I think the percentage is going up, because with the internet, it's harder to hide the truth. But it's still not enough, I don't think. Anyway, let's continue on a little bit.
Nearly 20,000 of the Native American 5 civilized tribes sided with the Confederacy during the Civil War, fighting to keep slavery alive. 28% of the black population who were free in New Orleans pledged their support to the Confederacy. All of the 13 southern states of the Confederacy had substantial numbers of black slave owners. There were more than 250,000 free.
Just to continue on that, Canada had slavery before Europeans settled it. It was endemic. It had happened forever. In fact, the Native American tribes gave slaves to the Europeans. And of course, part of the British Empire, it was abolished in 1833.
We need to remember that governments did not own slaves. Slave owners did. In fact, the US government fought a war to end slavery. How much should the descendants of the 400,000 Union soldiers who lost their lives fighting to free the slaves pay to the descendants of the slaves they freed?
I'm sure she's being mercilessly attacked by far leftists, because she kind of breaks the mold. She kind of breaks out of the stereotypes that the left, the progressives, push, right? Because she's not white. All non-white people are supposed to believe exactly the same thing, right? When they talk about diverse voices, they don't really mean diverse voices. They mean total conformity, but people with different skin color, all saying and believing the exact same thing. Oh, and Elon Musk replied, and slavery is still active in many parts of the world. It is. But again, that's an inconvenient fact that you're not going to hear from the progressives. Rumbum says kids can barely read or do basic math because it's racist, apparently. Oh, it turns out that math is racist, but getting the right answers is racist. I mean, literally, that's what they believe. Scientific American. Modern mathematics confronts its white patriarchal past. You couldn't, this is from 2021. You can't make this up. I say all the time, they're trying to kill satire. What else is this? This is an utter absurdity from Scientific American. I'm sorry, Scientific American. You are lost. You are captured by lunatics. Mathematicians want to think their field is a meritocracy, but bias, harassment, and exclusion persist. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Every department in every university is dying to get anybody but a straight white male. We all know this is true, right? If there's any bias, it's in the opposite direction. Math is just math. It's just objective reality. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.